So I'm going to explain to you that how would you find inverse of this matrix M, where M is as given below, if it is possible. Okay. So we are going to use row operations for this purpose. So first thing we did was that we made this, we created this matrix here, and with our original matrix M in the first block and the identity matrix in the second block. Now what we would do is that we will use the row operations, okay, I'm sorry, row operations to transform the first block into the identity matrix. That is, here we already have a 1. We shall transform this entry to 0 next, and then we shall have 1 0 1, and then we shall go in order, like transform the second entry in the second column to 1 and everything else to 0. So let us proceed that way. So let us work on this. So what we would like is that in this matrix here, we would like to change this entry to, or transform this entry to 0. Okay. And the best way to do that at the moment appears to be multiply the row number 1 by 2 and add that to row number 2. That is, just take 2 times row number 1 and add it to row number 2, and adding the multiple of a row to another row is one of the valid row operations. Okay, so let's proceed with that. So we have the matrix, right? So we got this, and one moment, excuse me, let me just bring that down here for you. Okay. All right. So what we are doing is we will take 2 times row number 1 and add it to row number 2. So what will happen? Here in this portion, we are going to get what? We are going to get negative 2 plus 2, that is a 0. Okay. And then here, what are we going to get? 2 times 2 is 4. And when we add negative 2 to 4, what we will get? 4 minus 2 would be 2. So here we shall have only a 2, right? Okay. And 2 times 0 plus 1 will remain as 1. And on this part, 2 times 1 plus 0 would become a 2. So let's put a 2 over here. Okay. So we got this 2 here. And 2 times 0 plus 1 would stay as 1, and 0, any linear combination of zeros will be a 0. Okay, so we have accomplished this task. Now what would we like? We would like to transform this entry, that is second entry in this second column, to a 1. Okay, now one way would be to multiply this row by 1/2, which we can do. We will have fractions, which is no big deal, but I think it would be, we can avoid fractions by doing this, that take this row and add the third row to it, meaning that you just do this, that just add 2 times row number 3 to row number 2, or you can write the way we did before, or it's the same thing if we add 2 times row number 3 to row number 2. Multiplication is addition is commutative, so it would not really matter. All right, so let's proceed with that. Then I'm going to erase this portion from our board. All right, and then we are going to proceed with this. Okay, so here we are. Let me just bring it down here for you. Okay, so what we are doing is we'll take 2 times row number 3 and add it to row number, oh, I'm sorry, we meant a 1 there. I don't know why I went that way. We are just simply adding the row number 3 to row number 2. Forgive me for this mess up. Okay, so when we are adding these two rows, 2 minus 1 became a 1, because that's what we wanted. We wanted a 1 in the second row in the second column, right? And here, when we add this one with this negative one, what are we going to get? We are going to get a 0. All right, so let's put a 0 there. Now, 2 plus 0 would be 2, 1 plus 0 would be 1, and 0 plus 1 is going to be what? That's going to be a 1. So let's just write it over here. All right, so we have gotten this accomplished. Now our next task would be what? We would want a 0 in this place and a 0 in this place. That is, we transform the second entry in the second column to a 1. Now we want zeros everywhere else. Okay, so let's proceed to obtain that objective. All right, so let me erase this. Now notice this, that I can obtain a 0 here by taking -2 times row number 2 and adding it here, right? And I can obtain a 0 here by adding these two rows. Okay, so we will do these two simultaneously. That is, we would add, or rather subtract 2 times row number 2 from row number 1, and we shall add row number 2 to row number 3. Okay, so let's go in that direction. So when we do that, what do we get here? See, 2, -2 times R2, so that will be -2. So 2 minus 2 would be 0, exactly as we desired, right? Now 0 minus 2 times 0 would be 0. Now 1 minus 2 times 2 would be how much? That will be a -3. All right, so let me write a -3 here. So that would become -3. And then when we do this, 0 minus 2 times 1, that would be how much? That will be a -2, right? So we get a -2 here. All right, and oh, just a second, I apologize, one moment. I messed up, didn't I, late this evening? So 0, okay, so this place will change. Okay, so here we go. So we got a -2 here. Okay, and the same thing here, we shall get a 0 minus 2 would be -2 there. So we have, let's erase this 0 and place this -2 over here. Okay, now we are just going to add these two rows. So what will happen? 1 minus 1 is going to give me a 0, right? Okay, so there we go. 0 minus 1 will stay as -1, and 2 plus 0 would bring us a 2 over here, right? Okay, and 1 plus 0 will give us a what? 1 over here, right? Okay, so we get a 1. All right, and then 1 plus 1 will give us how much? 2 over here. Let's just put this 2 over here. Okay, now what we would do is that we shall take up the third entry in the third column and transform that to 0, right? No, sorry, I apologize. Third entry in the third column and transform it to a 1. All right, okay, so here we go. Now that's our last part, because we can see this task is already accomplished. So we are going to multiply the third row by a -1. So what will that do for us? That will simply, you can see -1 times 1 would be a 1, right? And then we would get what? Everything here, all these guys will become what? Negatives of themselves, right? So what happens is the inverse of the matrix that we were looking at originally is this matrix. Okay, so So what we have obtained here is we have obtained that the inverse of the matrix M, this was our M, is this matrix, and we can go ahead and verify our result using our graphing calculator. And so what we shall do is we will go to matrix here by this second, and here is matrix, and then we want to edit the matrix A. Sorry about that. The size here is what? 3 by 3, right? Okay, and we will quickly enter our matrix. All right, I could have actually entered it beforehand, but anyways, so we have 0, -1, then -1 again, right? So we have 1, 2, 0, -2, -2, 1, 0, -1, -1. So that's our matrix A. Now what do we want? We want the inverse of this matrix. So just go ahead, type in A, then take the power, and we want which power? The -1. Let's see if it accepts it. It did. So what we have is -3, -2, -2, 2, 1, 1, and -2, -1, -2. So we obtained correct answer, or you could have multiplied them together and seen that you have the identity matrix. All right.